best designers understand how things are made and how things are built and how things come together. It's one thing to conceptualize your ideas and your drawings, on paper. It's a very different thing, as you say, when you're actually, working in the field. It's a very different thing to, bring those designs to life. So the more knowledge and understanding and detail that you know how to capture over here in the conceptual design phase and draw, then the more successful your outcome is going to be, and the least amount of problems you're going to have on the side.
Hi, I'm Beth Beesky, the founder of More Time to Design and your host of the Design Dialogues podcast. I've been a designer for the last 12 years and I've run my own studio for 5. And I know how hard it is to run a successful business. You not only need to be great at designing, but you need to be great at all the other things as well. I created More Time to Design, a software platform to help designers run efficient studios, and I've created the Design Dialogue podcast to help us all learn together. Each week, we will meet professionals who are at the top of their game doing things that help us run our studios. We'll have conversations with social media managers, interior design mentors, copywriters, stylists, photographers, suppliers, and also designers who have been in the game for a long time and who have such a wealth of knowledge to share. I hope that each week you feel inspired and informed at the end of each of our design dialogues. So join me for the Design Dialogue podcast. Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Design Dialogues podcast. And this week I am joined by Donna Guyler from Donna, Guyler Design. Hi Donna.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining me. So I love to start all of my dialogues by finding out, what can you see out your window today?
Oh, wow. Okay. I love this question. I'm in my beautiful studio and I have a window behind me, but we can see right out the entry doors here. Beautiful. So we are based up in Paradise Point. So we're sort of overlooking the high street. So I can see the top of all the beautiful cafes and the hive of activity going on down there. And of course, it's a stunning winter's day here in Queensland on the Gold Coast. We started off with a chilly 10 degrees, which in Queensland terms, Queensland lingo,
it's freezing.
Freezing. Yeah. If we had fires, we would get them going.
Yeah.
It's the middle of the day now, so of course it's layers off and it's still 24, 25 degrees. So yes, I have a lovely perspective. Yeah.
Beautiful. So I'd love to hear about your business and how you've grown it to what it is today. And also I'd love to know, did you always want to work for yourself?
Okay. How much time do we have? I'll answer the second question first. Did I always know that I wanted to work for myself? No. And even to this day, I'm still surprised myself that I am here. Although obviously I'm so far advanced now, there's just no possible way of going back.
Yeah.
So interior design is my second career. I haven't always been a designer. So before I decided to move into a design career, I worked on the corporate circuit for about 15 years or something. I was an EA, sort of a high-level EA I worked for law firms and engineering firms. I was supporting the managing partner, the executive committee. Yeah. And I had this burning, sort of creative desire always. So, but I had, these fantastic jobs. I worked here, I worked in Sydney, I worked in London, in the UK, and I just landed these really great jobs. I was earning fantastic money, but there was something just not fulfilling about it.
Yeah.
I was also obviously gripped by fear if I look back now. So I procrastinated for about 15 years.
Yeah.
But eventually I got the courage up to, to decide to study. I enrolled in uni. Oh gosh, then I fell pregnant with my son. I was incredibly ill. That all went pear-shaped. It took me a very long time to get my qualification, but eventually I did.
Yeah.
And so once I graduated, I got some work experience. I actually got my first work experience position was with a cabinet maker. And if I look back now, like it couldn't, the universe couldn't have put me in a better position. You know, it couldn't have unfolded any better for me, because I had no idea really. I mean, I knew what cabinetry was. I had learned about it, I had learned how to draw it, but I had no idea about how things worked in the real world, in the design world. And I was thrust into it, working for this cabinet maker. So I was up in the design studio, but downstairs was the factory. So I learned very quickly how to hone my drawing skills, but at the same time, I was down on the floor with the cabinet makers, learning how to build a cabinet, how to put it together, how to assemble it here, how to take it to site, what happens if it doesn't fit, what happens if it doesn't work. So I very quickly started to form this correlation between the technical skill set required for design and also the practicalities of actually bringing the designs and your creativity to fruition.
And that is so interesting. So like already from that, I've got lots of questions, but that is so interesting, because I think, like, I quite often say design school gets you to the front door, and then what you learn on the job gets you that's where you really learn how to design. And a lot of designers, when they go to design school, would be like, oh, I don't want to, I want to work for a design firm. I don't want to go and work for a joiner or a cabinet maker. But it very quickly dawns on you how technical something like a kitchen is. Like, there's so many parts to it, kind of thing. And that time you would have spent at the cabinet makers, you would have like supercharged your learning so much and put you light years ahead of where you would have been if you hadn't had that really kind of experience, like really, really practical experience. And so many designers fall into the trap of like, oh, it looks pretty and I want to do that and I want to do this finished kind of thing. And I'm like, you really, really have to knuckle down and learn that real technical stuff. And quite often, you get it from talking to trades on site and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, what an amazing gift in a way to get all that knowledge.
Yeah, it's so true. I feel very lucky, but also, as I mentioned, I feel like, the universe had a path for me, and that's really where it started. I think I also very early on, sort of very intuitively realized that as a designer, my zone of genius, I guess, my skill set really lies, or my strength really lies in that technicality. Because interior design, as encompasses a lot. So I always look at it in the way that we sort of, I guess, stage our projects and present our workflow to our clients, which is stage 1, conceptual design and building works. Stage 2 is where we're furnishing homes from top to toe. So I very quickly learned that stage 1 was really, what lit my fire, really what was appealing to me, and also where that's really where you're adding the most value as a designer. And I always say that the best designers understand how things are made and how things are built and how things come together. It's one thing to conceptualize your ideas and your drawings on paper. It's a very different thing, as you say, when you're actually, working in the field. It's a very different thing to, bring those designs to life. So the more knowledge and understanding and detail that you know how to capture over here in the conceptual design phase and draw, then the more successful your outcome is going to be, and the least amount of problems you're going to have on site. I'm laughing. Smirking because there's never no problems.
No. But it's also, I think as well, it gives you that, like, as you said, like no project never has any problems. Like that just doesn't exist. But what it does, it gives you that, that deep understanding of how things are put together, so that when something does go wrong, you're not you can, like, so quite often when things goes wrong, it's because someone hasn't kind of thought through, they've maybe thought through step 1 and step 2, but then they haven't thought through, well, actually the flow on that is like 3, 4, 5, and 6. And it generally is because people don't really understand how it all goes together. your knowledge kind of thing, and anyone who has that real technical knowledge, that really helps you then kind of problem solve, because you're able to see step 1 through to step 6 of like what the consequences of are this decision. So it's really, I mean, it's invaluable kind of thing. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you about from what you've just said, so, and I actually think this is really obvious from looking at your studio and your work and the way you present. So as an EA to, you know, lawyers and engineers, that is immediately screaming out to me that someone who has a very strong systems and processes built into their business. Organization is key. I imagine you are a very organized person. When you started your business, how did you, like, what were those transferable skills that you had as an EA in that environment that you knew you had to bring across to the design studio?
Yeah, it is such a great question, because interestingly, when I launched my studio, which happened by default, just to go back to that, when you asked me, did I always know I was going to work for myself? No, I didn't to begin with. I mean, if I look back now, I think, wow, we've come such a long way. But I was working for another cabinet maker, and I was actually going to lose my job because they were changing the structure within the company. So I resigned. And some clients that I was working with at the cabinet making factory said to me, well, where are you going?
Yeah.
And they came with me. Boom, I had a business.
Yeah.
So it's
such
literally
a common story. It really is. The number of designers who are like, I kind of fell into this. Like, I was working with someone and then all of a sudden I had a business.
Yeah. And so then, you know, you just have to get resourceful and make it work. But yes, I definitely had this incredible skill set that I could, you know, immediately transfer. And to be honest, I didn't know any other way. You know, I'd be working for lawyers, you know, inside a law firm, and I work with some really great, what's called magic circle firms, sort of some global top tier firms that were like highly systemized, like within an inch of their life. Like there was not a thing you could do during the day that you did not capture on your timesheet. Like, you know, it was so highly systemized. It was so much governance, so much framework, so much red tape.
Yeah.
So I didn't really know any other way. So I brought that into my studio, which was great in the, you know, obviously in the early days, it was me, right? In my 3rd bedroom, my IKEA desk, my little laptop, my student ArchiCAD license. So I very quickly thought, okay, I've got a business, I've got clients, I need a front, I need to look like I know what I'm doing. So I did set up some systems and processes. Obviously, fast forward, you know, 8 years, our studio has grown. We have a team, and yes, we have always evolved and adapted and revised those systems. We haven't always got it right. Of course, we learn by trial and error. Yes, that has definitely been a strength of mine. The flip side of that is that, you know, I came across with almost like a corporate attitude, which does not wash on the job site. It washed in the studio, but I had to learn very quickly that does not wash on the job site. You know, trades want to be spoken to in a way that is mutually respectful. Not that I wasn't respectful, but I think I kind of came across with that corporate attitude. It's the best way I can describe it.
No.
So I had to really shift that perspective and really learn how to work with the on-site trades. I went from the boardroom to the job site, completely different dynamic, completely different arena.
Yeah, and that's really interesting, because I think so often designers who come to interior design as a second career, they don't, I think, give enough value to the skills they'll bring from their first job, like their first career. And those transferable skills are amazing. But I do often sometimes think that you also have to be open to adapting, because, as you said, like what happens, like how a boardroom works is quite different from how a work site works. And I think you can sometimes see like that friction when designers are kind of like, oh, like I just can't quite get it kind of thing. And I think that's so important. It just talks to, you really have to lean into building relationships with key tradespeople. And I think sometimes designers who make the transition successfully are very much like, they're sponges and they just want to learn, and they're kind of like, okay, I don't know, I know this, but I don't know this. So let's just find a tradie, find a builder, find a fabric supplier, like whoever it is that I need to find that information out from. They kind of search that out kind of thing. And so that's something that I see kind of over and over again. But you kind of got to be open to going, I got some stuff, but I'm kind of starting from scratch again. And that can be hard at, like, you know, when you've got all this experience in life and you're used to being like, you're used to being the person in the room that walks in and like everyone looks to you for the answers. And sometimes you've got to move back down the peg a bit.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? There's a good point in that, because you know, you mentioned when you sort of walk in the room and people are looking for you, and that, you know, the interior designer engaged on any project is, I guess it's about finding that delicate balance, right?
Yeah.
Because particularly if there's no architect on the project,
Yeah.
if there is an architect on the project, that's great. Architect and designer are collaborating all the way through the construction works in conjunction with the builder as well. But if there's no architect and it's just, you know, you as the designer, the design team, you know, you are that key person in the project, no question. You've done all of the drawings, you have the client brief, you are acting on behalf of the client, you're making decisions on behalf of the client. Sometimes we're making decisions we don't even consult with our clients on, because they don't need to know about that. We just resolve it on site. So you are that key person. So I think it's finding that delicate balance between understanding that your role is critical to the success of the project, but also that there is so much benefit in collaboration. And, you know, designers are not builders, builders are not designers, designers are not cabinet makers are not designers. But together, if you collaborate, you know, that's the magic, right?
Yeah.
But
totally.
sometimes there is a bit of a power play there.
Oh, absolutely.
Power play that we definitely make it our business to avoid that. Like, we're very aware of that, and we take the absolute opposite approach, because there's so much benefit to be gained in coming together as a team.
Oh, totally. And I think as well, like, I think you only make that mistake once, maybe twice, where you kind of get on the wrong side of the builder. Like, you make it once and then you go, this is not going to be good. And I think as well, like, I haven't yet met a tradie who doesn't like to explain how he's built something or why he did something, kind of thing. Like, have not yet met one. And so I think
it's their craft, right?
It's totally their craft. Like, I accidentally fell into like a 45-minute discussion the other day with a tradie about different types of render. And I thought it would be a 5-minute answer, and I was still there 45 minutes later. So I'm quite, I really know the nuances of different types of render at the moment. But it's really true. Like, I think as someone who comes to it as a second career, don't be intimidated by the fact that the builder on site, he might have 40 years of experience behind him. He might do things differently to how you would do it, but just lean into it and kind of go from there, because you're right, like the interior designer, and even if there is an architect on site, usually the architect, like, they'll have bits that they really want to lean into you on, kind of thing. So I think kind of just being aware of that and just kind of learn from it all.
Yeah, respect is key too, I think.
Totally.
Just each trade and each professional consultant on site to respect each other and each other's space and each other's contribution to the project. That's when there's some real magic. Yeah.
So as someone who is obviously very strong when it comes to their systems and processes, what would be a bit of advice you could give to a designer who's kind of sitting here listening to this going, wow, I don't have any systems and processes. It's a scramble. What would be kind of one of the things that you would say, like this, like tackle that first, or think about it this way, kind of thing?
Yeah. And it's funny because I'm laughing on the inside, because we as creatives, I think, you know, our natural strength doesn't lie in systems and processes.
Definitely.
We want to be in the cloud. We want to be dreaming up beautiful homes and beautiful kitchens and things, particularly in the early days of setting up a studio, when you're trying, you know, you're saying yes to everything. You're taking on what you can. You're focused on building your deliverables and what you can deliver and adding value. very easy to bypass those systems in the early days. And I say, yes, I had transferable skills for sure. But as I started to take on more work and the size of my projects changed, and I had to, engage another designer and then another designer, and it got away from us as well. So I think my advice would be, it's okay if you're working in a complete shambles. That's okay too. We all do the best that we can at the end of the day. Invest in software. That would probably be my biggest advice as a startup. It feels scary, and it is as a startup sometimes, obviously it's an investment, but I think things really changed for us when I really invested in some key software for our studio. Asana for project management. We produce all of our drawings in SketchUp Pro, which is the professional version of SketchUp, which provides us with access to layout. Harvest is where we time track. House Pro is our CRM and accounting program where we issue all of our invoicing and proposals. Canva, is everything now. And then of course there's the bazillion apps that I operate on my phone as well to assist us with social media management and that sort of thing. So I think if you're serious about systems, then you should be serious about investing in the software that can support those systems, or even initiate those systems for you. Like Asana, you get Asana and, all of a sudden you're organized just because you have Asana.
Totally. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. For you. I mean, you craft it and you mold it and you customize it to suit you and how you work and how you run your projects and the extent of the deliverables on your project. But even as just getting those systems, those software applications in place will force that organization in your studio.
Yeah, definitely. And look, we find that with More Time to Design, like we quite often, like actually I was talking to someone yesterday about it and they were like, I don't really know where to start, but it gives you a roadmap, and it kind of and quite often the roadmap kind of, you go, oh, actually I need this, or I don't need that, or I need to add this kind of thing, or it's a hole in my system that I've got kind of thing. But I do think and there are so many software options on the market, like More Time to Design, House Pro, Zero, like everything, and you can kind of do as much or as little as you want as well. But I do think software does give you that guide to actually, where do I start?
And it aids efficiency. Also.
Absolutely.
Duplicating and doubling up and doing one task over and over and over again.
Definitely. So you have quite a multidisciplinary studio in that you have your interiors side, and you've recently also launched a product business. How did that come about? Because I see a lot of designers who are like, I think the idea of having a product business is quite tempting. But how did that kind of come about, and how do you manage both?
Yeah, so it came about because from 2020 to 2022, we experienced a significant growth in our studio, in our design studio. We expanded the team, we had more capacity, we were taking on more projects. So it was almost like the natural progression, the natural next step for me was to diversify. And even before we had that growth, I was already starting to think about how we could diversify the studio. Certainly, as we started to grow, it was pivotal that we did diversify and create a second income stream to come into the studio. And we were constantly filtering questions and DMs and messages on social media, where on how to access and buy the items that people were seeing in our projects. So sort of that natural progression. So Palm and Oak was born. We have given it its own name because that was on the advice of my finance team, because eventually it can become a saleable asset, really. So for now it's Palm and Oak by Donna Guyler. Eventually, as it gains some momentum and traction, then that could essentially be that separation if we needed to. That's the boring stuff. But
I think that's really interesting, because I think so often you start thinking about where it goes from the very beginning is really quite important, because as you said, like it does, it becomes like you can kind of silo it off and it can become its own little thing. And you might just want to do that, or you might just want to do the design studio kind of thing. So I actually think it's I think it's something people overlook from the beginning about you don't obviously start a business to think about selling it, but it's good to have a bit of an idea about what you might want to do with it down the track.
Yes. And do you know what? I think the most successful entrepreneurs will tell you to start a business with the idea that you are eventually going to sell it. Yeah. So I think that's probably another really great point to move into to another initiative or another income stream or another arm of your business. Always pays to get the right advice as well. That was advice to me, which I would otherwise not have thought of. So Palmanoke was born. We spent about 12 months preparing that for launch. So it was, the website design, the Shopify platform, selecting all of the items, curating all of the items, the imagery, the copy. It was an enormous project. And to be honest, I didn't anticipate the size of the project.
I was just going to say, you sound very much like the next sentence is going to be, and if I knew how much work was involved, I would never have started it. The thing that every entrepreneur has said every time.
I mean, I certainly don't look back, but I think we did get to a point. I think it was when we were trying to work out how to work out the delivery component.
Oh, yes.
Which is a point of contention for any e-commerce owner. I think we got to that point and I just thought, oh my gosh, my head is going to explode, but we'd come too far then. We couldn't turn back. So it was a sizable project, getting it up and running, and we launched it. And I'm going to be entirely honest with you because I feel that we should be. It was really great to begin with. It had some real momentum. We had built up the hype on social media. So it was really great when we launched. So I then very quickly learned that an e-commerce space requires significant ongoing maintenance. Yeah. When I say ongoing maintenance, money, like so much money. You have to, it's not a set and forget.
Yeah.
You have to constantly market.
Yeah.
Social media, Facebook ads, Google ads. You have to be in every single space, right? Because, and this was the other huge learning curve for me. It is basically the complete opposite of my design studio. So the design studio, we have a brand, it's established, so we sort of have, select projects that we work on and it's sort of a well-oiled machine. And I naively thought perhaps we could, hinge off the studio to launch the brand, which we could. But also you need to cast the net out. And, all of a sudden there's a lot of people that don't know Donna Guyler design. They don't care about Donna Guyler design. They're just interested in, cushions or sofas or whatever it is.
And you're talking to two very different audiences. Right. So, and this is I think the challenge that a lot of people have, like an interior designer has going into the retail space. Yes. Because the person who wants to buy the cushion is quite a different person to the person who will have an interior designer select the cushion for them.
That's exactly right. It's two completely different markets, two completely different landscapes. So it's possible, it's viable, but now it's two completely separate social media campaigns, two completely separate marketing campaigns, two separate marketing budgets. So and I was learning this, as we went along. So, and then I had to make some decisions when we were about 6 months in. Obviously the cost to set up the e-commerce store is significant. Once we got rolling, we thought this is going to be great, but then it very quickly slows down if you don't keep up that momentum. So, about 6 months in, I had to make some decisions about whether or not we were going to continue with that marketing budget over here in the e-commerce space, or because obviously we're running that in conjunction with the studio. And the studio, whilst the margins in retail and e-commerce are significant, certainly significantly higher than the design studio, the studio for me still remains the most profitable arm of our business over the e-commerce store. But it is still there in the wings. It's slow and steady. it just does sort of provide that secondary passive income for
Yep.
us.
And
That's just where I'm leaving it for now.
I think that's a really interesting point, in that things like an e-commerce store I mean, there's no such thing as an overnight success, and getting to the point where it's a sustainable business on its own is a lot longer than anyone would most probably ever think it is when they start out. And I think having it is quite a different market, because like if you have to convert, I don't know, say you need to convert 15, 20 people a year for your interior design projects, it's quite a nurturing experience, a lot of hand holding. You get a really long runway to show those people what it's like to work with you, your personality, like all of that kind of stuff. You get a really long runway with that. With it, e-commerce, you get about 10 seconds. Like it's so different kind of thing. And I think the energy and the money and the time and all of that, and also the kind of level of rejection that you need to be comfortable with. Like, I think that is something that people wouldn't expect.
Very true.
Like, I think, seeing add to cart and then like the cart not, it's like, you love that cushion. Why didn't you just take the next step and buy it? Like, do you know how happy that would have made me?
I know. It's a funny space, and you can't let yourself think too much about it when those things are happening, right? Because it can be soul destroying. But it's extreme highs and extreme lows, right? Because then you can get a whole lot of orders in, and it's just they come in and it's easy, and that's great.
And you're like, great, I'm so glad we did this.
Yeah. But I mean, it's no different to any business. It's a roller coaster, and you have to be prepared for that, and you have to be resilient, and I think you have to know what your priorities are as well. So I think from a commercial perspective, e-commerce can be highly profitable, but the investment in e-commerce is high and ongoing, which is why the margins are so high, so that they can justify that investment.
Yeah. So what would be your advice to someone who's sitting here thinking, I'd love to have a little e-commerce store on the side?
I think if that is your dream and that is what you want to do, you should do it. You should absolutely do it. I think it's a personal preference. I've had to make some decisions with Palm and Oak and sort of prioritize the studio over Palm and Oak for now. Like I would never shut it down. I would actually love to have a bricks and mortar store one day. So I don't regret it or don't look back in any way. It's just kind of consistently there for us. So I would say, if that's your passion and that's your drive, then absolutely go for it. But it is a second tier to your business. So do you have the capacity to manage both? Do you have the financial, are you in a financial position to be able to support both? But yeah, it can be highly rewarding, but also, it's taxing sometimes.
It's a hard road.
It is. Yeah. I think also that the furniture and accessories space, I'll also say, is highly saturated right now. So I think that also plays a part in it, and it's very cost driven. As you say, the e-commerce space it's transactional. It's just it's a transaction. It's not like the studio here, which is an ongoing relationship. So the furniture and accessories space is saturated. So it's very, very cost driven.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that I suppose from an outsider perspective, just looking at like the delivery side, if you are going to do something, start with something small that you can easily put in the post. Don't start with doesn't involve like a delivery van is good.
That shipping and delivery is it's a tricky one to navigate.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So the other part of your studio is you're based up in Queensland, but you work up and down the East Coast. So how do you manage that part of like that dynamic as well? Because I know like a lot of designers are like, would love to, you know, work interstate. And these days there's really, you know, with Zoom, I think we're all so, you know, post-COVID, like everyone's so happy to work on Zoom kind of thing. But the, you know, the pure element of what we do is like, can't move the site, you can't Zoom to site kind of thing. So how do you manage that dynamic in your studio?
Mm. So I guess the first thing is if it is an interstate project, if we're potentially talking with clients that are interstate, these obviously the size of the project would need to you know, come into play for us as to whether or not we decide to work together. Because you're right, you know, if it's a renovation project or a new build, we have to be on site at some stage during the construction work. So obviously that is not going to be as regular as it is for our local projects, but we have to be on site at, you know, pivotal stages throughout the construction phase. So I guess that all has to align for us to take on interstate projects. First interstate project I took on, you know, I had to learn a lot. You know, there's all sorts of logistical issues that I hadn't taken into consideration because it was the first time I was exposed to that.
Yeah.
I learned a lot and very quickly had to change our process, change our costing structure around that, change the deliverables around the interstate projects, and think about how many times we had to be on site, but also how we can really add the most value as well. So that we're, you know, only on site at critical stages, but that we're really adding value at those times for the client as well. But yeah, logistically, there's a bit to think about. In terms of, you know, the conceptual design, it's really, like you say, I think that was one of the good things to come out of COVID, right? Was this concept of, you know, just being able to do business via face-to-face, via Zoom, you know, flexible working arrangements. Yeah. I was just having this conversation with somebody this morning about, yeah, that was a really great thing to come out of COVID. So it, you know, we sort of adapted our systems internally as well to be able to deliver things electronically, to deliver presentations via Zoom. Yeah, we just kind of had to just kind of roll with it, I guess, particularly in that first project, and adapt. And it works really well for us now. There's nowhere that we couldn't service, really.
And that's such an awesome place to get to. In terms of like the really kind of nuts and bolts day to day of it all, do you kind of look at the whole studio and kind of go, okay, like just even from like, I can't be in, you know, 3 different states at the same time, kind of like, okay, so we've got these projects all at this stage kind of thing. We can't really do an interstate project at this time because it's just going to take me out of the office too much.
Yes, we do. And I think that applies, I guess, not just to the allocation of interstate projects, also local projects. It's one of the most challenging things of running my studio is managing the project schedule. It's incredibly challenging. You can have all the software systems in the world, right? But cannot anticipate when things are going to go wrong and the painter doesn't turn up, or you know, the time doesn't turn up.
Or council decides to hold up a DA and like
Or
you had a perfectly planned 6 months and then it just gets poof.
Yes, and this is the reality of what we do. So yes, of course, we for interstate projects we have to ensure that we have, you know, the scope in the schedule to be able to manage those. I think we're kind of set up so we can you know, run those interstate projects just as we run our local projects. But yes, I guess holistically, it's just trying to work. Yeah, it's constantly trying to juggle what we have and create a buffer before the next project. But that buffer is often eaten up. You know, the existing project, or maybe this new project, you know, says, "Hang on a minute, we need to start now." We thought weeks. Can you start now? It's that constant juggle.
Oh gosh. I mean, and you're right. It doesn't really matter where the project is. You can have all the best laid plans and they can just, you know, easily blow up. So what are you looking forward to in the next 12 months in your business, which just sounds like it's got a lot going on?
We do have a lot going on. I think the most important thing, the most exciting thing I'm looking forward to in the next 12 months is, look, it's got me tongue-tied. It's my own project.
Oh, that's okay. That's a whole other podcast episode, being your own client. That's, yeah.
Yes, right. Although it's funny, like a lot of people have said to me, how has the decision-making process been for you, for yourself?
Yeah.
Have you been your own worst client? But I've actually, it's come very easily. We've made quite a few changes along the way, but the decision-making process has actually come very easily because it's been in my head for so long now, Beth.
Yeah.
So
and I think as well as designers, you do get exposed to so many things, but you really do know what you like. And like, it's not like you're really seeing stuff for the first time. And so it's like shiny object syndrome. You kind of like, yeah. So I do quite often think designers are good clients. Like you can be your own best client kind of thing.
Yeah. I think it can take a while to get to that point though.
Yeah.
I think that's something I had to learn as well along the journey, because also as you go along, reps are constantly reaching out to you. You're getting emails, you're seeing new products, and like you say, shiny object syndrome, but even also, to the extent that you want to educate yourself on new products and materials and finishes and things that are available to be able to, expand your capability. But I think I had to learn also that there's a lot of value in just working with what the suppliers that you trust, the products that you trust, the materials that you trust, and also the suppliers that work with you, give you great service, provide great after sales service for your clients, for your projects, suppliers that you can trust if things go wrong. So it's finding that great blend of a great supplier, great product, and just kind of sticking with that. You have to evolve, obviously, as a designer, and keep your finger on the pulse and understand new products and new materials that are available. But I think it's also, I know for us now, we really have the suppliers that we trust, and we work with them. And if we're looking for something that's potentially not in their range, then we just call them and say, we've seen this. Can you do this? Or we're thinking about this. Can you do that? And sometimes they can work with us.
So, totally. Yeah. I think that relationship with your suppliers and your trades and all that kind of stuff is really, it's so important. And I think then getting to work with them on your own project is really special.
Yes. I'm very much looking forward to it. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Is there one thing that you are trying out that you've been trying to get into a client project for ages and you kind of like, I'm just going to do it on my own project?
Oh, that's a good question. No, not really.
Oh, that's good. Because I often, there's that old adage that like you kind of experiment on your own house. And I kind of like, I always think, it's quite often you see it and you go, wow, that really worked. And I'm like, I wonder if that's an idea they've been trying to get across the line and no client's been quite brave enough and they've just done it on their own home.
Yeah, it's probably the opposite for me. We've designed that many homes that we get to the end and I think,
I want that.
Feel that. Yes. Yes, that's going in my home. Oh, I love how that works. Or I love how to. So it's probably really a consolidation.
Or your clients would like walk through your home and they'd be like, "Oh, I recognize that."
Interesting. Yeah, that's my kitchen. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's a very exciting 12 months ahead. Very, very exciting. Yeah. Thank you so much, Donna, for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this design dialogue. I hope you have found it full of inspiration and helpful information to take into your design studio. If you like the podcast and want to hear more, consider sharing it or writing a review, as it helps us reach more people, and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. If you would like to unlock the power of effortless studio management and elevate your design business to new heights, please follow the links in our show notes to see how more time to design can help you build a better business. Have a great week, and I will see you for our next design dialogue.